Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Reserved Investments, and thank you for joining me. A couple of notes before we begin. I am located literally right outside Philadelphia. We're expected to get 14 inches of snow total today. It is 17 degrees outside as I am recording this video. So where I'm going with this, you may hear a slight buzzing sound in the background of this video. That is my home heating system. Keep in mind, this wonderful, glorious basement office where you see me record all of these videos, it is, as stated, in my basement, which is really located right near my heating system. So that's why you may sometimes hear a buzzing or a weird vibrating sound in the background. That is my home heating system. Now, with that out of the way, today we are going to be talking about how are precious metal prices affecting the overall antiques and collectibles trade. For those of you that haven't been living under a rock the past year or so, right now, as of the recording of this video, gold is hovering right around $4,987 per ounce. Silver is hovering right around $103 per ounce. Now, of course, there are many reasons why we're in this type of economic environment. I'm not going to get political in this video. You guys know I do not like to do that. That said, we're looking at a very, very, very negative economic sentiment where we have the stock market going gangbusters, but the average person, unfortunately, just can't get ahead. We also have a changing world order. This is where we kind of touch on politics, politicians, and the like. So all these things are contributing to a lot of uncertainty out there. As a result, precious metals has once again entered a bull market. Now, those of you who may remember the financial crisis that took place right around 2008, 2009, you probably remember right during the aftermath of the financial crisis, there was also another bull market for precious metals. And if you guys recall, in April of 2011, if I remember correctly, silver hit an all-time high price point at that point in time of $49.80. Now, of course, these bull markets do end. And this is where there's going to be a little bit of a cautionary tale in this video as well for the gold and silver bugs out there that think precious metal prices just keep going up. They're the greatest investment in the world. I've said this before. If you want to invest in precious metals, they should have a very small place in your portfolio. They should never, ever be the main crux, the main bulk of your portfolio. That would be a very bad decision to make. And you can research that all on your own. I do know there's crazy people out there that love to cherry pick data, and they'll say something like, between 2000 and 2012, if you would have invested in gold or silver, you would have this much. You can make the numbers look any way you want them to if you are going to cherry pick dates. Now, on that same note, I will say, over the last year, silver alone returned over 150%. It was one of the best performing asset classes out there. This is why I'm not against if you want to invest purely in precious metals, just as long as it's part of a well-diversified financial portfolio. It's just like collectibles. If you're going to invest in collectibles or other alternate asset classes, they should be part of a well-diversified portfolio. They should not be the entire piece. Now that I said all that, one of the things when we look at the markets that are affected directly with a rise in precious metals, you have, of course, the antique side of the market, and then you have coins as well. So those are the two markets that we're mainly going to be focusing in on for this video. I just want to make you all aware. So if you don't have an interest in antique silver, you don't have an interest in coin collecting, this may not be the video for you. Now, on that note, one of the main talking points, this is something where if you're taking notes during this video, this is something you want to write down. This is something that is well known if you're in the antiques and collectibles trade. Whenever the market price of a precious metal, whether it's gold or silver, surpasses the collector value of an item, melting is always the end result. You have to understand that concept. This, of course, reduces the supply of antiques and collectibles composed mostly of these precious metals. So this is where we look at how this is affecting these markets. If people are melting this stuff down due to the increased prices of precious metals, this obviously, just basic economics, it is going to affect these markets in one way or another. And that's where we're going with this video. Now, ironically enough, this can actually lead to an increase in prices for quality antique silverware, tea sets, and related high-quality silver pieces over the long term due to a lack of supply remaining in the overall market. This is why you will meet some antique purists out there that love to invest in like a very expensive set of antique flatware or even an antique tea set that's made of silver and was put out by somebody like Tiffany and Company, which is really a high-end luxury retailer that also, of course, was formed in 1837, and they produced a lot of silver sets and the like. So that type of stuff can actually increase over the long term as a result of this phenomenon. So if you are somebody that invests in antique silver sets, silverware, pieces made of silver, if they're high quality, which we are going to talk about as well in this video, how to identify high quality pieces, because that's important. Those are good investments over the long term, because the precious metal market, much like the coin market, these are cyclical markets in the antiques and collectibles trade. This is why whenever I do a video talking about pop culture collectibles, if I compare that market to antique markets, what's the one market I always bring up? It's always coins and currency. And the reason being is that is the most liquid market in the entire antiques and collectibles trade. That's why that market has been performing exceptionally well, especially over the last few years, where if we look at the overall market for most stamps, stamp collecting is dying. Coin collecting is actually growing. So it's very important that we have this conversation. Now, unfortunately, there is also a major consequence of increased precious metal prices, especially on the antique silver side. You do have some idiots out there that don't understand that certain pieces of antique silver have a lot of historical value, have a lot of antique value. So they will sometimes look at this and go, oh my gosh, I can get over $100 an ounce for silver right now. And they'll melt down something that should have never been melted down because, again, the collector value or the historical significance of that piece, it's worth more on the market as is than for its silver content. So you do have idiots that really don't pay attention, and now grandma's trusted teapot that's made of silver, that has a lot of historical significance, that's in near mint condition, and was passed down through several generations, is now being sent to the refinery. So that is a major consequence of this. Another problem you have is a lot of thieves that are operating when silver prices, gold prices start escalating. They specifically look for these items. And unfortunately, stuff that is usually stolen that has a high silver or gold content, it usually gets melted down very quickly because usually the thieves want quick cash. And of course, if the item's going to be melted down, there's no evidence then that ties them to that item. It's being technically destroyed. So that is something too that happens. This is why if you do invest, I always encourage people this, if you invest in silver, gold, rare coins, anything that has significant value, it should be kept off-site. Safety deposit boxes are my number one go-to for items like this. I've talked about this in other videos. For those of you that are not aware, I am a huge rare coin collector. All my collections that are third-party graded, they reside in safety deposit boxes. I don't keep any of that stuff at my residence. I don't keep them in my home or office or anything like that. They're all in safe deposit boxes for that reason. Theft of that stuff is always on the rise. Now let's talk a little bit about sterling silver. If you don't know what sterling silver is and its relevance in the trade, sterling silver is a precious metal alloy, composed of 92.5% pure silver and usually made up of 7.5% of other metals, which of course is usually copper by weight, if you know anything about this. Now, sterling silver is usually often marked with a 925 stamp. This is why if you're looking at antique silverware, if you're looking at a piece of antique silver and it has the stamp 925, that's usually telling you something where that piece is sterling silver. Now, this is where I'm going to do you guys a favor. Online, I don't know if you're aware of this, there is an online encyclopedia of silver marks, hallmarks, and maker's marks. I am going to link that encyclopedia in the video description below. I do want to warn you, it is a free encyclopedia, but it is, of course, sponsored by ads. So as you click through that encyclopedia, you are going to get hit with a lot of advertisements, but it is 100% free, guys. So beggars can't be choosers. I use it myself, so I'm just going to state that up front. I use it myself. Now, I also do want to tell you some of the prominent sterling silver makers that at least are located in the U.S., have been located in the U.S. There's Gorham Manufacturing. There, of course, is Tiffany & Co. I'm sure that everybody watching this video, whether you have an interest in this stuff or not, you've probably heard of Tiffany & Co. They were formed in 1837 in the U.S. There's also Wallace Silversmiths. So those are three prominent companies in the U.S. alone. Keep in mind, there are worldwide manufacturers of sterling silver, some more credible than others. You can check all this stuff out. Again, check out the online encyclopedia that I linked to below for silver marks, hallmarks, and maker's marks. Now, interestingly enough, whenever the price of precious metals shoots up, like what we're seeing now, of course, the damaged and lower tier silver items are generally the first to be melted down. Over time, again, as a result of the high price of silver, rare and historical pieces can increase in value, and this again leads to long-term appreciation of the asset in question. We've already covered that. Now, this is where we get to the biggest problem with an increase in precious metal prices. That is, it creates a speculative frenzy where hoarding can become a problem, and speculators believe that prices will only increase. I'm sorry to tell you, this is 100% false. At some point, this will end. Again, if we get in my DeLorean time machine, back in April of 2011, the high price point of silver was $49.80. From that price point, it dropped exponentially. If we go back right around 2014, 2015, 2016, silver, I believe, if I remember correctly, was under $15 an ounce. I think at one time it even hit $13 an ounce, and it stayed there for many years. This is why I get into so many debates with gold and silver bugs that over the long term, gold and silver are horrible investments. If you buy right, if you sell into the hype, you can do very well by buying and selling into these markets. But if you're holding for the long term, compared to a stock-based index fund that also pays dividends, that's usually the better investment. Again, as I repeated at the beginning of the video, you can always cherry pick dates. You can make your favorite investment look like the greatest investment ever just by cherry picking dates. But I'm just being honest with you, most financial professionals, including myself, who is not currently licensed, I want to be very clear there, will tell you that typically if you're investing in precious metals, it should be 5% or less of your overall portfolio. Now, of course, if you know anything about me, I have 20 to 30% of my investment portfolio in antiques and collectibles. But the majority of my holdings are in index-based stock funds, like an S&P 500 index fund, total stock market index fund. I do very little with precious metals. I want to be very clear because I'm more of a rare coin collector. And if you're like paying $10,000 for a rare coin, you're usually not buying that coin for the precious metal content. You're usually buying it for historical significance. Now, on that note, let's talk about the rare coin marketplace now that we're almost 15 minutes into this video. Believe it or not, and this is something that most people don't realize, most collectors and smaller investors and enthusiasts operating in the coin collecting market, they're not like me. They're not like the other whales out there who routinely pay thousands of dollars or more for a single coin due to its historical importance and rarity. Most collectors and enthusiasts operating in the coin collecting community much like other collectible markets. We can even compare this to other pop culture markets. They're usually lower level enthusiasts and speculators. As such, whenever we see a rise in precious metal prices, this creates great opportunities for bullion coin dealers, as well as lower level coin dealers who sell coins based on their precious metal content. The problem, of course, is the beginning buyer, the entry-level collector that used to pay, say, $50 for an American Silver Eagle coin, or heaven forbid, $60 for a common date circulated Morgan or Peace silver dollar. Those particular collectors and enthusiasts, now they're stuck paying more for those entry-level coins. So this does kind of create a barrier to entry to the lower end levels of the coin collecting market as a result. So just keep that in mind. Also, with silver prices above $100 an ounce, there are increased reports from coin dealers that classic and antique common date silver circulated coins with little numismatic value, they're being melted down on a regular basis. So unfortunately, the lower entry point collector or enthusiast in this market, when prices rise, they have a lot going against them if they're trying to get into this market. Now, incidentally enough, a positive development about all this is that the increased precious metal price is actually great news if you invest in higher end coins, because it attracts new blood to the hobby. So what happens is you have people that have been investing in lower level silver coins, maybe even to a lesser extent gold coins. Now, because prices are rising, there's a lot of dealers that I talk to that tell me all the time, a lot of times these people end up trading up, and now they end up entering the rare coin marketplace. So now let's just use this as an example. Little Timmy's been collecting American Silver Eagle coins, circulated Morgan, Mercury dimes, whatever it is, in lower grade for many, many years. Well, now due to the silver content kicking up, he can now take his portfolio of coins, he can go to a high-end dealer and he could say, hey, I got all this silver sitting here. I want that $7,000 coin you got in the case. That's a key date, rare coin. And now he can cross over and he can at least own some of those coveted rare coins that somebody like me would own. So this is actually a good development in this market. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you guys pay attention to any of the coin conventions that go on throughout the country. Well, January 8th through January 11th of this year, 2026, there was the annual Florida United Numismatics Show, also known as the Fun Show. And they already reported that the show broke records for attendance and sales alone. This year's show was especially hot, and a lot of it is attributed to the rare coin marketplace and, of course, also the increased interest in precious metals. So there are people that got involved in collecting, speculating, hoarding precious metals that are now crossing over and becoming rare coin collectors. And this is one of the reasons why I have over 6 figures of my net worth tied up in rare coins and currency, guys. This is really how all this is connected. So in my opinion, it is a good time to be invested in rare coins. Now, again, I am not a true fan of precious metals simply for their bullion content. I do owe some. It's like less than 1% of my portfolio overall. And I usually own the precious metals in exchange traded funds, which I know probably a lot of you guys do not like because you like looking at the shiny things. That's why a lot of people prefer to invest in like American Silver Eagles, American Gold Eagles, Gold Buffalo coins, items of that nature if you live in the US. I prefer the rare coins and currency. And then I have a very small position in exchange traded funds that are backed by silver or gold. So I really don't worry too much about the precious metal investing per se, but I do know there's a lot of people out there. That's why I put out this video. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I will see you in another upcoming video. Thanks for watching.